That's where everything is. Meeting minutes, work plans, research updates, everything you need to know is there. So go to the website. I'll be quite honest with you, as chair, a lot of times I'm going there to update myself as to what's going on and what was I supposed to do with this and what am I forgetting to do with this. So the website, Bob and his team, you do a phenomenal job keeping this thing up. So definitely use the website. It's the one sales pitch. That's one thing you take away out of my presentation is where the website is and where to find information. You'll be money ahead and it'll be worth your time here today. I just want to acknowledge the members. Next slide, please. So if your name is on this list as an agency member of the Flex team, will you please stand up? That's it, 2? 3? There we go. Thank you, guys.
Dan is online.
Oh, Dan's online? Perfect. So we got some virtual hands up, so we'll do that as well. Thank you, guys. It's a lot of work that we put in here to get to where we are right now, so I just want to acknowledge them. But next slide, please. I also want to acknowledge the associate members. So if you're an associate member and your name's on the list, please stand up. There we go. We got 4. And we probably have a couple online, I'm guessing, as well. I just want to acknowledge it because the bi-weekly meetings we're having up until we built the cells out there, and then also now the monthly meetings to make sure we're keeping research moving forward. There's a lot of work that goes on, and these people are very active. They're participating. We're getting opinions and feedback on things. So I just want to thank both groups, you know, the DOT members and the associate members for all the work they put in. Next slide, please. So we've got a couple different areas, and I'll tip it off. The rest of the chairs will have the same style of presentation, because Jerry did a really good job laying out a format for us, so appreciate that. Short-term research. What are the kind of the simple things that we can do just to get some information out, get some quick one-hitters out where it doesn't necessarily need a huge build-out, doesn't need a big, long, drawn-out research plan, but just some quick information we can share amongst our members. And so we've got SRF on board that's preparing some reports on us, and we're getting close to being finished with them in the Flex. We've got 2 topics. We've got the members listed here. I think most of you, if you were here, stood up as part of the previous group already, so I'll keep moving on. But the 2 topics we're looking at are longitudinal construction joints. Next slide, please. So one of the things is all the state DOTs have done something in terms of trying to improve the performance of their longitudinal construction joints and asphalt pavements. It didn't really need to be a test cell at Mid-Road or some sort of test project. We said, why don't we just survey the states, let's gather what they're doing, and we can do a synthesis type document that summarizes what the different state members, the 6 state members are doing, and highlight them. The other thing we're trying to do here is highlight some of the innovations they're doing, because I know states like Illinois have done some innovative things with joint sealers, whether it's applied before, you know, with the J-band type product, or the sealers that are sprayed on afterwards. And then other states are working more on compaction specs like Wisconsin. Let's highlight those innovations to see what they're doing and what they may provide benefit. So for us, this is really truly, let's just share information amongst the states. There's no need to really build extra test cells to prove this out. So we're working on that document. We're trying to capture a couple of those innovative things as we speak right now. So I would say by the end of the summer, you should see this posted online as a usable document. And then as part of the team charges, we'll have to figure out what's the next step once the document's ready. The other topic is tack codes. Everybody's done something with tack codes to try and improve them. I know in Wisconsin we've worked on them too. I'm going to reference Illinois again. I inherited, luckily, a person that used to work for IDOT to be my HMA supervisor, Steve Hateful. So I can take a lot of their innovative ideas and try to apply them to myself in Wisconsin. But we're also doing that with the NRRA. Let's survey what are states doing to get better tax out there. Are there specific products they're using that are working better? Is there certain application methods? What's going on here? So again, let's synthesize, let's gather all this information, put it together in a report, and share it. So this is not an NRRA section, but I have to highlight this because what this does is it kind of tells the story of how we chose what we were going to do as part of the build out at the NRRA. Now, how many of you were here last year? Okay, so that means over half the room, this is your first time here. So I will go through a little bit of a history lesson. For those of you who were here last year, tune out the next 2 or 3 slides. I apologize. But we gotta get everybody on the same page. So with the Minroad and NCAT research projects, they partnered together and put some cells down there that were designed to look at performance testing of asphalt mixes. We were trying to figure out what performance test did what validated or matched what happened in the field. We built cells to look at those things and designed them to crack. And the reason I'm telling you this is what we had to do with the NRRA Flex group was to do something different than what we had already built out here at Minroad. So, next slide please. We had put all these mixes down that were designed to either crack or resist cracking, and we did a whole ton of torture tests. If you can name a torture test, we probably played with it as part of this research project. So it's a kind of I want to say like a parallel study that we're working on right now through NCAT and Minroad. But I wanted to highlight that because we're already doing performance testing and cracking type studies with this study. So when we were doing the NRRA Flex team, had to be something different. We weren't going to repeat the same research project at Minroad. So what did we do for long-term research? And all the states talking together and the associate members we've heard many different ways to put overlays down. A lot of our DOT dollars are stretched. You're not seeing as much new construction anymore. You're seeing a lot of overlays, and overlays of old concrete, overlays of badly damaged asphalt roads, overlays on stuff that we really shouldn't be overlaying. And every time there's many different thoughts out there as to how to do this. So the focus of this first long-term study is, let's look at all these different overlay methods and see how do they really perform. Is a thicker overlay better than a thinner overlay with a high polymer mix? Look at these different variables in one test section and see, okay, how do they perform? What kind of life curves can we get? And that's actually something that agencies were really interested in. Is an overlay truly going to last 8 years, 10 years, 12 years? And what's the difference if you change thickness or change the material you're using? So that was really the focus of this long-term study here, is looking at these overlays. The other part of it is, we've heard of a lot of different ways of trying to enhance compaction and get more durable mixes out there. And we wanted to try a couple of them side by side, and this is a great research facility to do it at. So we have all these different overlay types out here, but we've also got a little bit into different types of looking at more durable mixes, and I'll get into it here in the next slides. So this is the team that's working on it, very large team. If you're part of that team, please raise your hand. There we go, I got a couple new hands from what I've seen before. Perfect. Appreciate the work, and a couple of you guys, I know you're raising your hand and everything because you're like me, you're part of everything. So Ishan, I see you're back there, so you're going to be lead researcher on this. He's going to be one taking all the information that we gather as part of this study, putting it together in a report, and working through it. Next slide. So I'm assuming almost everybody came from the south today to get here. Did anybody drive from the north to the south to get here? Okay, unfortunately for you guys, you did not drive over the test cells. Everybody else did, because we were on the bypass, I guess is what you call it, Ben, right? This morning. So we are the cells, the big red oval there. That's where we are. So if you guys were driving on what I would describe as kind of some rough concrete, and then all of a sudden you hit these asphalt overlays, these were the cells that we built here last year as part of this study. So to give you a little bit of a lay of the land. Next slide, please. And I apologize, there's a lot of information here in very small cells, but I'm going to kind of walk us through where we are. And if you have your program and you go right to the middle, it lays out what everything is out there at Minroad. So as I reference the numbers, you can kind of see where we are. I didn't realize you guys were going to have a cheat sheet out there, but this makes my life easier, so I appreciate it. What we're doing out there is looking at different thickness overlays in the first couple cells. So you got 983s are control, 984 is just a 9.5 millimeter overlay, 985 is a 12.5 millimeter overlay. So what's the difference in performance with the 9.5 millimeter mix versus the 12.5 millimeter mix? 986 is a little thicker version of that 12.5 millimeter overlay. And what you can truly check out by looking at these cells is how much does thickness impact performance in trying to resist that cracking? Because these concrete cells they were past their useful life. There was some damage. The joints had some rough stuff there. So that's what's going on there. 987, we're getting a little thicker. We're putting 2 lifts down, so we're getting to that 4-inch thickness with a 9.5 millimeter wearing surface out there. So just to see, is that 9.5 millimeter surface going to give us something? The cells highlighted here in red, 988, 989, 990, and 991. Those are the enhanced compaction cells. So what we're looking at there is different methods to see how does it help performance with different methods that are going on right now. 988 is kind of a standard, kind of cookie cutter Midwest overlay on concrete, 4 inches with a 12.5 millimeter wearing surface. That's kind of our bread and butter in Wisconsin, and I'm pretty sure in Minnesota, I think you guys are the same. If it's not 12.5, it's a 9.5 in that type of style. 989 is trying the Indiana Super Pave 5. How does that compare to our standard mixes? So we put a Super Pave 5 out there. 990 is a regressed air void mix. So we went from a standard mix design, 4% air void target, added asphalt back in until we got to 3% air void. It's something that we've done in Wisconsin now for a year and a half to up our asphalt contents, and it has made about anywhere from 0.3 to 0.5% more asphalt in our mixes. So how does that compare to our standard mixes? Is it going to be more durable? Is it going to be more crack resistant? We'll truth it out. And then the next one here is, let's look at a 9.5 millimeter overlay versus a 12.5 millimeter overlay, and which one of those may perform better. And then it was also trying to get that extra compaction in there. When you get to cell 992, we start looking at some different things here. Interlayers. I know Iowa's been working with them, Minnesota's been working with them. We've had some contractors in Wisconsin trying to work with them. I know other states have been as well. So it's putting in a very low air void, high polymer modified asphalt mix down on top of that distressed pavement to try and prevent that cracking from coming through, and then putting a standard overlay on top. Cell 993 is a Super Pave 9.5, standard 9.5 millimeter mix on top of an interlayer. I think this is the PASRAC, kind of what you guys have been using in Minnesota is that crack relief layer between your unbonded concrete overlays. Then we get to cell 994, just a standard thin 9.5 millimeter overlay. Right back on the mix, the same as you would see at 984. And then finally the last cell is ultra thin bonded wearing course with stabilization. So just trying all these different mixes to see how are they performing here and maybe get some life curves for these different treatments and how they may perform. The one thing is, it's a control in terms of they're all on top of concrete and it's all in the same climate and they're all going to see the same loading. Now this is on the bypass, so it only gets traffic 1 week a month, I believe. So it's not really going to be a traffic study, and we weren't really intending this to be a traffic study. A lot of the distresses we see when we put an asphalt overlay on concrete come from climate, and then the damage of the pavement that's below it reflecting through. That's the major driver of the stress. We know how to design mixes to handle traffic, but we're trying to really say, how can we mitigate the distresses from coming back and forth? So that's really why we said, okay, if the bypass is available, we and the Flex team will take it. We'll go out there and play it. So finally, we have to have some more pictures here because this is kind of a heavy slide. So here's some stuff from construction, cell 995, tacking paver. So we're spraying the tack right in front of the paver. That liquid's going down right in front of the auger to tack that mix right to the mat. And then you got cells 989 and 990, looking at the Super Pave 5 and regressed. So these are some photos from construction last fall. Next slide, please. The other long-term study, I have the wrong title on here. Oh no, this is still the right one. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what are we collecting out here? All the different distresses that MnDOT's been collecting. They looked at the joints, there were thermocouples out there. We have FWD, IRI, loading, distress evaluation. They're collecting all that data. And the state members said that, okay, we understand there was a separate cracking study, but in order to truly do justice to what we're doing here, we need to look at that as well. So all the states volunteered to do a different type of performance test. The Hamburg wheel, the iFit, the MIST, TSRs, DCTs, SCBs, all these different test procedures that are out there to model cracking and pavement distress. States have volunteered to run them. So teaser, workshop session 3 this afternoon. We'll be talking about some of the initial results we have from those different studies. The second long-term study, and I'm going to say this kind of goes as a little bit of a joint study here with the preservation group, is looking at cold central plant recycling. Those of you who are involved with NCAT, you know they've built cells there. Anybody that has worked with Virginia DOT, they are all in on cold central plant and cold in place recycling. Virginia is doing it on the interstates already. So they've bought into it, and we in Wisconsin have actually built 5 or 6 projects with this cold recycling. And who's my mic here? Did I turn it off accidentally?
Dead battery.
Oh, okay. Do you have another battery?
Let's try this one.
Is the mic on the computer picking me up, or is it through this? Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, back up. You're gonna have to talk real loud into that one.
Is this better? Can you guys hear me?
Probably not.
All right. Is that better? I'm gonna hold it. Okay. We'll try it this way. Test, test. We're good?
A little louder.
A little louder?
Got no volume control.
Okay, I'll put it in my mouth and see if it catches breathing well. There we go. I think we're good there, Bob. So cold central plant recycling. Why not use these mountains of raft that are floating around and start putting them through a plant with some emulsified or foamed asphalt, put them down as that nice stabilizing base, and get a good pavement out of it. We're seeing the research from NCAT and the other states has really shown that it's worked, and the projects we built in Wisconsin, which has all been cold in place recycling, is performing phenomenally. So the question is, how we want to work with this? How far can we push it? What kind of overlay do you need on top of these materials to truly get good performance? So we're working with this on the low volume road. Slide, please. Dave Retner, AT. Dave here? I don't know if I've seen him yet this morning. If not, you'll see him tomorrow. So Dave will be at the main workshop tomorrow. Is the lead researcher with that one. And then, again, the project team should look familiar because there's a lot of the same names as you've seen from the other project teams. But if you are here, raise your hand if you're on this project team. Okay, we got one hand. No, couple back there. Dave, you could raise your hand for everything, can't you? So we've got 4 cells out there on the low volume road. And what we did with them is do a cold central plant, 4 inches of it put out there. The first 2 cells just got a double chip seal. The only difference between the cells is one used a foamed asphalt and the other one used an emulsified asphalt. The other cells, 135 and 235, they got 1.5 inch overlay of HMA. And they've been running traffic on their loaded trucks. So the goal is really, can a double chip seal on a cold in place or cold central plant recycled mix be durable enough for what you would do for a low traffic township, county, municipal road and provide performance? Because if it can, locals can save a lot of money rehabilitating their roads this way without having to do reconstructs and can start stretching budgets. Next slide, please. So we're out there, strain gauges, collecting data on what kind of stresses we may be feeling through the layers. Again, FWD to check your modulus, see how your layers are working. Measuring the ride, catching the loads and the stresses. So we're collecting all that data. Next slide. So here's some construction shots. Cell 133, 233. So those are the double chip applications with the fog seal out there. So we'll be able to walk those this afternoon, I believe. So take a look at them. Next slide, please. And here's some updates. The fun thing I like about doing this stuff at Main Road is I can make mistakes here and get away with them, where I don't have to answer to politicians and taxpayers. And that was actually the concept here. Is let's push the envelope here. Let's see how far we can go. And the cell here, so you might say, well, that's a failure, 233. This isn't great. Well, 133 is still performing. The double chip seal is still performing. What happened here is MnDOT was running their loaded trucks on the low volume loop. They did not stop during spring thaw. They did not stop during breakup period. So when you had the least amount of support, they were still running heavily loaded trucks out on here. And it started to fall apart a little bit 233. It started with little chips coming off the surface, and before you know it, and then instead of stopping the trucks, they just kept running it. So they pounded this in its weakest state. But you will notice that cell 133, there's some cracking there, but it didn't pothole. It didn't fall apart. So we have some that have shown performance. Next slide, please. In terms of the other long-term study, spring break, or excuse me, I'm going to flip my slide here. The overlays. Cell 984, that thin 9.5 millimeter overlay, it's cracking. And from what Dave said, there's a lot of cracks in it. So kind of expected if you're only going to put a thin overlay on top of concrete. Cell 992, it's probably hard to see, but there's a thin hairline crack coming across the middle there, and that's the one with the inner layer. But again, it's a very tight, controlled crack, whereas in 984, you're seeing a little bit more of an open crack, one that you know is going to start raveling out a little bit. So we're starting to get some information after this first winter, because we did have some cold weather out there. We did have some winter, and I agree, Glenn, we didn't have a spring. It went from winter straight to summer. So when you guys got 15 inches, we got 31 inches up in Green Bay and had barn roofs collapsing in April. So it'll be interesting to see how this performs through time. And then as we're done with the mixture evaluation with the different torture tests, how those are going to perform and relate to what we see for performance in these cells. So that's all my slides. Are there any questions on anything we're doing here? Any term that I used that didn't make sense or someone didn't understand? Because I tend to use asphalt terms like they're common sense because I've been doing it for too many years. Any questions on anything in general? Why the Packers would beat the Vikings in the
Rogers would be healthy.
Could you only comment, when I did this study, it was a report that we had in CAT, that we looked at a lot of different materials, and one of which, developed the best practices for tackle and control joints in the flex of pavement. So maybe you want to look into that in the future as a reference for something that you publish in your materials.
Kind of was, just so I heard it was that FHWA did a study on tack boats and longitudinal joints, and yes, you're correct, because I know that the workshops on tack boats came through Wisconsin, and we used it to implement some spec changes, and it is to highlight really what we're doing in the group, so we'll make sure that that's something that was referenced. I think it might have been in the study. So, yeah, we did catch on that. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm 6 minutes early, which generally is not a problem if you're the last speaker before happy hour, not early in the morning. So. All right, well, thank you.